All right, welcome back, folks, to Dirty Boots Capital. Today, we have an amazing guest with us today. You all are going to recognize it's the amazing Kim Kiyosaki. Kim, welcome to Dirty Boots Capital.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for having me on. Been looking forward to this.
Yes, this is so much fun. Every time we get together, we have these great conversations.
And I like your backdrop. Nice backdrop you got.
Yes, it's the cash flow board game. And we are going to have a lot of fun talking about that. But I want to give you a look for folks that may not be familiar with all the great stuff that you do. You are just so amazing. Not only are you the co-creator of the amazing cash flow game, you're an amazing author multiple times over. You are a real estate investor. You are a speaker out there on the speaking tour. So just an amazing and giving woman, right? So I want folks to understand all that, and hopefully I did that justice because you do so much out there.
I'm just gonna let you talk, Tony. I don't need to say anything.
No, I appreciate all that you do in terms of educating us out there in the conferences and here on podcasts. I know you and Robert have your own podcast that you guys do, which is so important for folks to be listening in on and seeing what the cutting edge information is out there. So yeah, a lot of folks already know you, they know your story, but as we go through this recording today, we're going to get a little bit more into who you are and what you do. But first, we want to start with this amazing invention that you and Robert created called the cash flow game. And so it's a board game. And one of the amazing things I found out from, I forget if it was you or Robert, and one of the conversations was this board game actually came out before the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, which
Yes.
was something new to me. So tell us about that. Tell us about the genesis of this game here.
Yes, well, you're right, Tony. Most people think Rich Dad Poor Dad came first, but actually what happened is in 1994, Robert and I were financially free. And people think, oh, financially free, you must have had a lot of money. You must have sold your company for millions and or have huge stock portfolios. And we're like, no, we had none of that. We were financially free because we had more money coming in cash flow from primarily our real estate than was going out every month in living expenses. And that was the formula. So we had $10,000 a month. This is back in 1994, $10,000 a month coming in every month from our real estate investments, and only $3,000 going out in living expenses. So at that point, we were financially free. And people kept asking us, how did we do it? How did we do it? And we thought, well, we could travel here and there and there. We could give talks and tell everybody how we did it. Or wouldn't it be cool if we could create a game, of which we had never done before, if we could create a game that was fun and entertaining and actually trick people into learning. So, so we started creating this board game, had no idea how to create a game, spent many, many hours, many nights, many days building this game. And that's how it came to fruition. And as we were going forward with the game, back in, I guess it was 2000, which was very exciting. We got this call, this journalist in New York was doing a story on the cash flow game. And she said, do you know that you have a cash flow club here in New York with 1,000 members? And we're like, no. Oh yeah, you've got one in London, you've got one in Singapore, you have one in LA. And we're like, really? And so the whole purpose of the cash flow game was to teach people to become financially free, to become financially educated. And what we found out as we started doing our research, Tony, we found 3,500 cash flow clubs. These were people just getting together randomly, playing the game on a regular basis all over the world. Yeah. And so at that point, our mission from day one was to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. And at that point, we're like, oh my gosh, it's working. It's working.
Yeah,
one last point I was going to make, because people think the book came first. When we launched the cash flow game, we did not have a big marketing plan. We didn't have this, here's step by step. No, we built it and then we took the next step. Yeah. But in doing that, Robert decided we needed a brochure. So we started writing a brochure for the cash flow game, and the brochure kept growing and kept growing and kept growing. And the next thing you know, here's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So that's the genesis of it all.
That's amazing. And I love that because, that's something a lot of people don't know about in terms of Rich Dad Poor Dad or the cash flow game. And I think that's such a, it's a behind the scenes look at how things get started.
Yes.
And it's just a fun story
Yeah.
on
Well,
how it got started.
if you look at the game, especially the fast track, so there's the rat race where everybody's in the rat race, and then there's the fast track. And as we're putting together the fast track, most of those deals are deals that we had done, and many were disasters. Some were great deals, but it really is a game that we created to kind of showcase the step-by-step process that Robert and I went through to become financially free.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't amassing millions of dollars. It's all based on cash flow from real estate, from businesses, from other investments. It's the cash flow that comes in steadily, not the capital gains.
Yeah, I love it because it's a pretty straightforward and simple game and fun game to play. It's not like you need to be an accountant, right? Or you already need to be doing real estate, right? This is a game that kids can play. You actually have the cash flow for kids game, the specific game, and then you have this game, the one behind me here, for ages 14 and up. So you have the two separate games for different age groups. So if somebody has young kids, 6, 7, 9 years old, go out and buy the cash flow for kids version.
Yes,
Right?
and the kids game has no math. It's just all colors and symbols. And then we're just about to launch. We've taken the game that's behind you and me, and we've created it online. It's identical online so that people all over the world will be able to play with each other. You, Tony, could play in English, and somebody else could be playing in Japanese or in French or in Spanish, the same game. But so it's going to be a very international gameplay. It's going to be really fun.
That is awesome. Wow. That's breaking news. I'm gonna have to put a banner at the bottom.
We should be launching hopefully October. We've been working on it now for 2.5 years.
That is awesome. Yeah. And I gotta imagine it's a lot of fun to be working on these things because you're helping so many people out there, achieve a life of abundance, right? We've spoken about that. And it's so important to be helping folks out there today. And so the fun thing about the game is, for me, as we work through the inner circle there, the rat race piece of it, it's very mundane. You're working your 9-to-5 job. You're making a pittance of a paycheck, but it's so enlightening and so explosive and so empowering when you actually do make your way out of the rat race to the outside track and you start pulling in some big money. And you start investing in businesses and you start buying bigger commercial real estate and you start making even more money. It's just like, wow, can I really do this?
Yeah, it's funny because, you have different characters when you start, and you have everything from the janitor who doesn't make a lot of money up to the doctor who makes a lot of money. And people think they want to be the doctor. Well, actually, it's easier for the janitor to get out of the rat race because the whole formula is exactly the formula Robert and I used, which was you want more money coming in from your investments in cash flow than is going out in living expenses. And once you get to that point, you are financially free. And I'll tell you, Tony, the one thing that really woke me up when Robert and I realized we were financially free, we did not have millions. As I said, we had $10,000 a month. That's it. $10,000 a month. This was back in 1994 coming in from our investments, but our living expenses were only $3,000 a month. So at that point, we're financially free. And that's exactly what the game teaches. And the beauty of that was when we realized that it was for the first time, I was able to ask myself, what is it now that I'm financially free? What is it I really want to do with my life? And that was a game changer. That was really fun because it's like the whole world opens up to you and you don't have to be struggling, earning a living and trying to figure out how to pay the bills, which we were up until that point. Now it's like, what do we want to do with our lives? How can we be of contribution? So that was a fun aha moment.
Yeah, and it's amazing because you've been there, I've been there. A lot of folks that we speak with have crossed that bridge to needing to ask yourself, we're financially free. What do we want life to look like? And the wild thing.
It's not about taking a lifelong vacation either.
It isn't. It is
really fast.
and it's amazing because people like you, me, and a ton of others who have gotten over that bridge and are financially free, we are doing nothing but working to pull people to that side of the bridge with us to say, this is cool, right? Because when I retired at age 44 and I was financially free, I have to share with you, I went to the beach, I was hiking, and I'm looking around to my right, my left, and I'm saying, all my friends are still working, right? This is not fun. It's not fun to be going to the beach or vacationing or going hiking on your own. I want my friends to be there with me, right? And so yeah, from that point forward, I've been doing nothing but trying to help people through my consulting business and through the things I do to try to help people get to the other side to experience
What's
what
great,
you have.
yeah, what's great about that, Tony, and we talk about this a lot at Rich Dad, is you're a real teacher. You're somebody who's done it. There's a lot of fake teachers out there. They talk about it, but they've never done it. And people, I think one of the most valuable things people can do is to learn from people who are doing or who have done what it is you want to do.
Yeah.
And you're a real teacher, and I applaud you for that. And I applaud you for teaching people and getting them over to the other side, because it really is about freedom. I think you and I are both on that same page. It's about freedom.
Absolutely. No, thank you. You're very kind, and again, just very kind and giving person. So I appreciate that so much. So folks can find the game at
You can go
richdad.com.
to richdad.com. You can go to Amazon. Those would be the two best places.
Excellent. In the games, from my standpoint, they are cheap. The actual, the one for older kids and for adults, it's like $80,
Yeah.
right? People just go buy it. $80 is not going to kill you, right? The cash flow for kids is $70, right? It's cheap. It is well worth probably more than you will be paying for college tuition this year, right? And we don't have to go there because I know we could.
I'll tell you this, Tony, when we first launched the game, we had it priced at $195 US dollars, because we wanted, if people were going to pay the price, we wanted to make sure they were going to play it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people buy games and things, but they never play it.
Yeah.
So we thought if they make that investment, they will definitely play the game. So we've since been able to lower our costs dramatically and able to lower the cost of the game. But it's probably one of the higher end board games out there, no doubt. But that's one of the reasons we did that, is because if you're going to put out $80, I think you're going to want to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well worth every penny that we paid for it. So we play it with family and friends, and it's always a fun time to see the dynamic of the players.
Yeah. The true behavior comes out. That's what I love about physical board game. Your true behavior comes out. You're gonna like bet the ranch, or you're gonna hold back and not invest anything and hoard money. And yeah, it's really funny. The first time we beta tested the game, oh my goodness, so many behaviors came out. I remember there was one couple, and they were playing, and at one point the woman stood up and she's screaming at him, "You never let me win. You never let me win." And I'm like, oh my God, this is so much more than a board game right now.
Maybe a few counseling sessions after.
And we always say, if you're planning on getting married or getting into a serious relationship, you might want to play the game, because money, as Robert's Rich Dad said, money's not the most important thing in the world, but it affects everything that is. And so it's really nice to understand people's mindset when it comes to money.
Yeah.
Before you get too involved.
Absolutely. It's just words of wisdom right there. Thank you. So again, I'm going to encourage our viewers here to go out, richdad.com, go buy the game. It's cheap. It's not going to break the bank for you. It's going to provide a ton of education, either for yourself or for your kids, for your family, for your friends. Just go out and buy the game. It's, richdad.com, go buy it. I also want to, again, you're an amazing person. I want to talk a little bit about your book, Rich Woman. And I want to enter that conversation talking about the subtitle of that book, which is Rich Woman, Because I Hate Being Told What to Do. And that's a very powerful subtitle. So tell us a little bit about that subtitle, how that came into being.
Well, I was working on the book, and we were actually at a seminar, and I was there with my girlfriend, and we were talking about the book, and somebody asked, they said, "Well, you need a good subtitle. What's the subtitle?" And I said, "Well, we haven't come up with one yet." And we started talking about the book, and my girlfriend, she was also a real estate investor, so in Australia. And so we were talking about it, and I'm like, well, I really, when it comes to money, I hate asking for money, and I hate people telling me what to do. And she's like, I hate people telling me what to do too. And they always do. And that's why my boss, I never wanted a boss. And she went off, and I'm like, because I hate being told what to do. Yes, I hate being told what to do. And that's how it came to be, because money, as we know, Tony, money can be very controlling. It can enslave somebody, and it can set people free. And if you're being, at the mercy of somebody else who is in control of the money, they basically can tell you what to do. Not a good situation. So I wrote the book because as I would travel all over the world doing seminars with Robert, with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I would get up on stage, and it could be in Singapore, or LA, or London, didn't matter. And at the break, I'd always be surrounded by a group of women, and they all had similar issues and similar questions. And one of the main purposes for writing the book is what we found as women, as we get older, especially, because we're not taught about money, because oftentimes we depend upon a man or a family member or even the government for our financial well-being. What happens many times to women is we find ourselves in a financial disaster as we get older. And so that was the impetus. I would be at these conferences surrounded by these women, seeing there's a huge demand and a huge need to educate women about money for those reasons. The statistics bear that out. So that was the impetus for me writing the book, was to wake women up to, hey, start looking at money. Money's a life skill. Money you use every single day. I still to this day don't understand why it's so taboo. You use money every single day. You need to understand it. You need to treat it like a business, because it is a business.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's, as you and I know, and a lot of our viewers know, there's a lot of forces at play that are impacting us these days, right? The education system doesn't teach, men nor women proper financial education, right? They come out of school not knowing.
Right.
And then, I think this is a powerful book, and every woman, if not every man, should also read it, is from the perspective of, and I don't know how better to say it, but men suck these days.
Oh, come on.
And I'll probably get a lot of hate mail because of that. But what I mean by that is, the male demographic, they've just fallen off a cliff in terms of being providers, educating themselves, being self-motivated. I see so many young, able-bodied, strong men who go home after work, and instead of doing something productive, they go to their gaming console after work and play games for hours on end. I go into some of my tenants' apartments, and they have these consoles. I mean, I'm sure the computer cost thousands of dollars. They have this beautiful arcade chair with the joysticks built into the arms, right? And I'm like, is that the level of man that's out there today? And I think we see that in terms of, women are marrying later in life, because I think to a large extent, they can't find a suitable male that is at least their level, right? To be able to, get married and start a family, right? We see women who are having children later in life. We see, less births per family unit, right? So there's a lot of things going on, just because the male demographic is not really, they're not holding their own, and then they're not coming to the table with all that they should. So I think this is an important book definitely for women to read, to understand the advice that you're providing in that book. And most importantly, take action.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because you know, right? You and I both know, it's easy to have a book, read a book, and then it goes on your bookshelf.
Yes.
And nothing ever happens.
Right. And to your point, Tony, I think women are wanting to be more independent, but to learn about money is something, and actually going back to the cash flow game, we tell couples before they get married to play the game, so that you understand the mindset each other has when they talk about money and what they're bringing to the table. But for a lot of women, I think they want to be somewhat more independent, which is why maybe they're marrying later in life. But to that point too, as far as action, this is something that couples learning about money, investing your money is something couples should do together.
Yeah.
It's not, women should do it or men. It's not men versus women at all. It's something that here's an education, and include your kids, because it's a fun educational learning. And kids, oh my gosh, kids learn about money. They're interested in money very, very early on. We all know that. We've seen it. So it's something that you should all do together, I think is the point I want to make. And it's not that women are smarter than money, men are smarter with money. It's taking the time, learning it, studying it, applying it, just as you said, take action, which is why actually I wrote my second book, which is called It's Rising Time, because I saw a lot of women, they had the wake up call, Rich Woman was the wake up call, but they would attend the seminars or read the books and they weren't actually taking action. So I wrote It's Rising Time to put people into action and put women into action and take small steps. It's small little steps. You get a little education, you take a little small step, you put a little money into it, you don't bet the bank.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, you touch on mindset, and your good friend, my good friend, John McGregor, he talks about this all the time, and he has a beautiful system in place to help people understand and work through their own mindset. And because you've been there, I've been there, we understand mindset is everything in this game.
Yes.
If you don't have the right one, it's going to be 10 times harder. So come on, folks, let's get calibrated here with our mindset, and let's help each other kind of get to the other side.
I look at the very first real estate deal I did. I almost didn't do it because I had this mindset of, oh my God, what if I make a mistake? Oh my God, what if I lose money? Oh my God, what if everybody makes fun of me? All this fear of, and primarily making a mistake. And so that mindset was like, it took everything I had. I was scared to death. It took everything I had to sign that line and to turn over that money on that very first deal. Because I had all of that chatter going on, and other people were telling me why it's not going to work.
Yeah, right. Folks who have probably never done real estate deals in their life, they're humming in your ear, and we sometimes we're ridiculous because we're listening to these folks, and it's like, wait a minute, you've never even done real estate deals. Why am I listening to you, right? Yet we do.
Yes, you got to be so careful who you surround yourself with and who you take financial advice from. I had a friend who I walked through several properties with. She finally found the one she wanted. We were ready to do the deal. It was a great deal. She goes home and she talks to her friend. And her friend says, oh, that's so risky. Well, she's never bought a piece of property in her life. And so my friend backed out. So be very, very, very careful who you take advice from. That's why, Tony, we talk about real teachers versus fake teachers. You're a real teacher. You're out there, you're doing it, you've done it, you've made the mistakes, you've had the successes. I want to learn from people who are doing what it is I want to do, not somebody that sits in their ivory tower and preaches and hasn't actually taken any action. So really careful who you take your advice from.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit more about real estate, just touch on it a little bit more because it is a hot button these days. But in terms of your books, where can people find your books and get that advice and take action?
Just go online. You can get them at Amazon. You can get them at Barnes and Noble, any major bookstore. You can go to richdad.com, probably faster through, well, any of those outlets. It should be everywhere. They better be everywhere.
And again, this is for the viewers, this is short money. Just go buy the freaking book. Go buy it, go read it, right? And take some action.
Take some action. Take little tiny steps, but take action.
Exactly.
That's the most important thing that you're telling people, Tony.
So important. So let's talk a little bit about real estate because it is a hot button right now. What do you see currently happening in the real estate market, and is it a good time or a bad time for people to get started with their real estate investments?
Well, as you know, Ken McElroy is a dear friend, and also our real estate partner on many, many deals. And right now it's an interesting time. It looks like they're going to raise interest rates again. And of course you've got to put that into your equation. So when I'm talking to Ken, I'm like, well, so the first interest rate raise went up, which over the general population dropped real estate prices or values by 20%.
Yep.
So you got to take that into consideration as you're going forward. We were lucky enough, we locked in a lot of rates before the rate hike happened. Again, it looks like it's going to happen again. I think the most important thing to say is there's always an opportunity out there if you know how to really assess a good deal. Because if you've got good income from rent and you handle your expenses and you can handle your debt, and at the end of it, you have a positive cash flow, that's a good thing.
Yeah, one of the things, speaking about Kenny McElroy, he's awesome. He's a great teacher. He's a real teacher. And one of the things he harps on when he's teaching is never buy a property that doesn't cash flow on day one. And I think that's incredibly smart advice for folks to follow. I see a lot of folks leaning forward these days who are buying properties in questionable locations, because there's no business, there's no infrastructure around certain locations, and they're saying, well, it's cheap. It's a cheap property, right?
No, it's a very expensive property, and people say this too. You want to buy property where people are moving to. You want to buy property where there are jobs. So I remember when the Detroit market had just plummeted, and people were like, "Oh, are you going to invest in Detroit? It's so cheap." I'm like, but there's no jobs, which means there's no tenants. So no, it's pretty expensive right now. So yeah, to that point, there's always an opportunity. You just have to be smart about it. And if it so in the beginning, yes, the property has to cash flow. Kenny and his team now, they're so smart and they're so sophisticated and experienced that they can find a property that has major problems or some pretty big problems. So it may not cash flow the first day, but they know how to fix that problem and then the cash flow. So they get the property at a low price, they fix the problem, and then they have a wonderful cash flowing property. So if you know how to do that, that's another formula. But to your point, Tony, yes, there's got to be jobs, there's got to be people, there's got to be renters who can afford the rent.
Absolutely. And so we'll throw Kenny McElroy a little plug there. So for the viewers who don't know about Ken McElroy, go look him up. He has an awesome YouTube station. Again, there's a lot of us out there that are just sharing information on our YouTube stations. It's not meant to be a profit center for us. It's really just trying to educate and help people. And Kenny is just another one of those real teachers out there working to help people. So if you're interested in syndications, go listen to his podcast. Go look up his company. It's under mccompanies.com. So he's knocking it out of the park with his syndications, with his work. So,
and I would say this too, because Kenny will say the same thing. If you're just starting out in real estate, again, start small. Interviewed a gentleman not too long ago, and he was like, well, what you should do is you should invest in one of my properties, which is like 400 units. And I'm like, but they're just starting. They don't know income, expense, debt. They don't know all of this. They're just starting. Oh, but I'll make them a great deal. No, that's turning your money over and you're going to learn nothing. So the whole purpose of investing and starting small is because you're going to learn a ton. I know you learned a ton on your first property, Tony. I learned a ton on my first property. I made a ton of mistakes, like raising the rent when the tenant moved out, and all of a sudden it's like, how come nobody's renting? Because you raised it too high. Simple. But there's no substitute for experience. And
absolutely. No,
you and I have made a lot of mistakes. I know.
And those have been the best opportunities for learning for us, right? I didn't learn as much during my successes, right? We always talk about this sort of stuff, right? Our successes, sometimes they kind of go unnoticed, whereas our failures, those kind of hurt a little more. And we tend to think about those failures a lot more and say, how do I not do that again?
Yeah, well, one of my biggest real estate mistakes ended up bringing me one of my best properties, because I made the mistake. And it does hurt. I hate making mistakes. I mean, it's like that moment of like, oh no. But I learned from the mistake, and then I corrected on the next property. So the next property was a result of that mistake.
Yeah.
So if you can learn from them and implement them in your future, golden. It's the best way to learn. It's the best way a human being is designed to learn. We are designed to learn by making mistakes.
Yep.
Look at a baby learns to walk by falling down. You fall off, you fall off, and then you finally ride. So,
Absolutely. So in terms of today's real estate environment, definitely looking for properties that cash flow, be cautious, make sure you're looking at demographics, make sure you're looking at business conditions in that neighborhood. If somebody out there isn't familiar with how to do that on their own and buy their first rental property, definitely look into experienced syndicators who have done many, many deals and know how to do this stuff well.
yeah,
Somebody like a Ken McElroy.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and
And
it's funny, I was earlier today, I was having I had a Zoom conversation with a gentleman, Gary, and we're both real estate investors, and we were talking about all our battle scars with real estate, right? We bought in the wrong location, we paid too high of a price, we sold too soon, right? You know,
yep.
but what he and I came back to was with real estate, despite all of our bad decisions that we've made, real estate has been the vehicle that allowed us to become financially free,
Mhm.
despite all the bad decisions.
Right, right. Well, you learn from them and you implement them in your future purchases. Absolutely. And today, as you're talking about today, I mean, there are opportunities out there. For example, you've got all this commercial property, all this office properties, right? And a lot of people don't know what to do with them. People are starting to figure out how to convert them, how to turn them into something else. If you can crack that code,
Yeah.
that there's a gold mine there.
Yeah.
There's a gold mine in warehousing because everybody wants everything delivered. So if there's warehousing opportunities, I'm looking at one right now here in Phoenix, there's opportunities there. So you look at the trends that are happening today. Okay, everybody wants everything delivered. You just look outside your front door. There's UPS, there's FedEx, simple. Education could be a huge opportunity if you know how to take advantage of that, because the education system is upside down right now and people are trying to figure it out. There are some great opportunities out there. Just look outside your window. You don't have to go far. You don't have to get on a plane and travel anywhere. Just look at what's happening in your own neighborhood. In Phoenix, we're one of the top cities right now for people moving in. I wish they would stop moving in because it's getting a little crowded, but it keeps the rents up, it keeps housing up. So just look at what's happening. If people are moving out, maybe there's an opportunity there, but always look at what's happening in your backyard. And then how can I take advantage of that? Where's the opportunity? Because they're there. They're there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You just got to get creative sometimes. And I know you've shared different stories with deals you have done at the different conferences I've been to, and I love it when you share those personal stories, because they're real stories and they hit home that much harder when they're actual real stories you've been through, right? They're not textbook stories.
Right.
It's real. So
Yeah.
I so appreciate that. And actually, speaking about, so you and I were both at the Limitless conference on, that teaches a lot about financial freedom. And I loved your presentation that you did at that conference to some 1,500 people. So again, rock star stuff you are doing. And so I wanted to speak specifically, have you walk us through this mantra of be, do, have.
Okay. So a lot of people have heard that BE.DO have. And most people, they focus on what they want to have. I want to have this, so I'm going to do this in order to have this. And sometimes they get it, and a lot of times they don't. And what I talk about and what we talk about at Rich Dad, it's not about the having is not the most important. It's the being. Who are you being? And I'll give an example of that. I have a friend who wanted a new Porsche. So he was all excited about this new Porsche. His mindset was that Porsches are only for rich, good-looking guys. This was back in the 80s, right? Rich, good-looking guys. Well, he wasn't rich and he wasn't that good-looking. But that was his mindset. That was his being. He came from that being. He was more, didn't have much money, didn't have any girlfriends, wasn't very social, but he went and bought the Porsche. His being did not allow him to have the Porsche. So within an hour, not even an hour, driving off the lot, the car gets crashed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a long way to say your being determines how much having you can have, excuse me. So when you talk about the do, the purpose of doing is not to have. So you do stuff. People say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this so I can have this. I'm going to work really hard so I can have a nice house. I'm going to sell this so I can get that new car. I'm going to do so I can have. But the purpose of doing isn't to have. The purpose of doing is to change your being. So for example, Tony, if I want to, I'm doing what I'm doing today. If I need to learn something new, or I got to stretch myself, put myself in something that's a little fearsome, I'm a little scared to do it. It's like the first time you speak in public, or the first time you negotiate a deal. It's like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, but you do it. And that doing changes who you are, changes your being.
Yep.
Okay. So if you don't do anything different, if you don't change, if you don't try something new, if you don't strive and you don't have goals, nothing in your being changes. But as your being gets bigger, then you can have more. We call it havingness. Your havingness can expand as your being expands, your havingness expands. Think about a lottery winner. Okay, they win the lottery and they buy the house and they buy the new car and they buy all the stuff and they have all their friends over. And the next thing you know, they're broke. Not only broke, but now in debt because they bought the house and the car and all the stuff. Okay, so they're broke shortly after because their beingness was still of somebody who maybe was making just a little bit of money. That was their beingness. And all of a sudden they got this windfall and their beingness didn't grow, but their havingness was huge. So the being doesn't allow to have all of that and they lose it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I look at my own situation and in terms of, being the person, who I want to become, right?
Yep.
The person I want to embody, right? What my desires are. I work to study that being. I work to surround myself with people who are already doing that, right? Who are already those individuals. So I study who I want to be, right? And then, I look at, well, what are they doing? What sort of actions are they taking, right? What do I need to do on my end, right, to have the abundance that I'm looking to have? And so the abundance, when I look at it, I don't look at it in terms of materialistic things. I mean, I guess you could, but for me, I want an abundance of time and, financial security and, just adventure and the ability to live my life in an abundant way. And so when I look at that, that's how I kind of work through the be, do, have of creating a life of abundance.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Because if you look at real estate, so I look at real estate when I started with my little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Portland, Oregon. Okay. My being was a being of a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house.
Yeah.
Had I invested in a 100-unit apartment building, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I didn't have the experience. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the beingness to own that. So if I had started with a 100-unit apartment building, I'm sure I would have lost it. So the being builds, it builds by experience and by action that you take and by putting yourself in situations that stretch you. I think that's one of the, we only grow by putting ourselves in situations that stretch us, that are a little bit difficult, that make our stomach, tie in knots a bit because we don't know if we can do it. But when you put yourself in a situation where you're going to go or not grow, my very first real estate deal, I almost didn't cross that line. But when I crossed that line, I grew a lot. I learned a lot, right? But a lot of people pull back. Even though they know what they need to do, they don't do it because the fear overcomes them. So sometimes you just got to stretch yourself.
You are spot on. And this is why I love having these conversations with you, because you and I resonate with each other, to the infinite degree here. You speak of it in that way. I speak of it in terms of when I'm consulting with folks, I share with folks, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
If I share with you, hey, go out to your local real estate investment group and start networking with people, I don't want to hear back, well, I'm an introvert and I don't, it's a half hour away. And you know what? Yeah, that's all uncomfortable things. Get used to it. If you want to get to the other side, you are going to have to do some things that are uncomfortable for you.
Yes.
Signing a purchase and sale on the bottom line, that may be uncomfortable for you, but you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. For me, I share with folks, I've taken the you're probably familiar with the Myers-Briggs type indicator test, right? And that, helps you understand how you're built, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, and a whole bunch of different dynamics. And for me, I am an introvert. I am an introvert off the scale. Like,
I
see
would have
my
never
hand
guessed
over
that.
here?
I would have never guessed that.
I am, but
Huh?
in order to do the things that I want to do and help the people I want to help, I have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And for me, that's getting outside of my comfort zone in, and doing YouTube videos, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
going to conferences and speaking and networking and getting on stage and do speaking engagements,
Oh
right?
my God, speaking engaged. Oh my God, that was the scariest thing in the world for me when I started. Oh my God.
Right.
I remember the very first time I was speaking to a group of women, and it was like 2,000 women. And I'm sitting in the front row, I'm the next speaker, and I'm like, oh, an earthquake, a tidal wave, anything right now would be really welcome.
Yeah.
I did not want to get up on that stage.
But it's so important, because if you're not doing it, if Robert's not doing it, if Kenny McElroy's not doing it, if I'm not doing it, right? If we're not doing it, folks aren't going to be able to learn from the real teachers. And that's what we need, even though it may be uncomfortable for us to do that, right? And for me, it's a pain in the butt to jump on a plane and go from A to B and stay in a hotel room. That's no joy. I'd rather be in my own house. But we do this for others, to help others have a life of abundance and be financially free and all good things for them. So,
and I'll tell you too, one of my secrets for putting myself in uncomfortable positions, situations, and my trainer, my fitness trainer, always tells me that, you're gonna get really uncomfortable today, but it's gonna be good for you. But one thing I do, Tony, when there's something that I just don't want to do it because it's going to scare me, or it's going to really stretch me. Number one, I set a goal.
Yep.
Then number two, I make myself accountable to other people. So I have to deliver it. And number three, the people I'm delivering it to, if I don't deliver, they lose.
Yeah.
That has been my formula, and it works like a charm. So for example, if I didn't want to do a speaking event, I would agree to one.
Yeah.
So that the promoters would promote it. They'd put their money on the line. If I don't show up and do a good job, they lose. So it holds me accountable. And that's been a formula that has worked really, really well. The key is to make that first commitment, and then you got to follow through with it.
It is so funny. I had that same experience, that same mindset, right? And this is where we go back to mindset being so important, because I use that same technique. When I wrote my first book, it didn't start off as a book per se. I was creating a white paper to share with my family on financial freedom and personal freedom. And so then I got to a certain point in writing that I said, this is a book. But I was scared. I was uncomfortable. I had never published a book. I wasn't an author. I didn't go to school or have any formal training on how to be an author or creative writing or any of that, right? So it was very intimidating. So for me, I did just that. I started telling people, I'm writing a book.
Yeah.
I'm going to be publishing next year, whenever it was, right? And the simple fact, like you had said, the simple fact of sharing that, and now putting yourself on the line such that if you didn't achieve that, either you'd look foolish or you put somebody else in a foolish light. I mean, that's not what we want to do. And so when you hold your feet to the fire in that way by saying, hey, I'm doing this, well, now we better get it done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as like picking up a phone and making a phone call. I don't want to make that phone call. Well, just pick up the phone and make the phone call. I've learned that over time now. The harder things I do immediately, like something comes up and needs to be dealt with, I deal with it, because otherwise I'm going to think about it and I'm going to worry about it and I'm going to lose sleep over it. No, just get on the phone and make your phone call. If
Just do
you're
it.
buying the property, go meet the broker, go look at the properties. But our minds, talk about a mindset, our mind is going to sabotage us all the time. Why we can't do it? Too much trouble. It's too uncomfortable. No, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. The money. Can we talk about the money for a second? That stops so many people.
Yep.
I don't have the money, so I can't invest. I can't buy the property because I don't have the money. Robert and I did not have the money for the first 10 deals we did. We did not. And thank God, because it gave us so much creativity. We had to put this to work to figure out, once we find the property first, find your property first and see it and make it real, touch it, walk through it, and then you get excited about it. And then it's amazing how you can put your mind to work to figure out how you're going to make that happen, how you're going to find the money, what are you going to do to create it so that you can have that property. But so many people, oh, when I get the money, then I'll invest. Well, they never get the money because there's always something that comes up, right? So why not? Yes.
Yeah, no, you're so right. You've lived it. I've lived it. And, I share with folks, don't be afraid of things like a hard money lender. If you don't have the money, they may be the right option for you. Not always, but maybe, right? They provide a couple of different benefits, I'll call them. Number one, they may bring money to the table to help you with the down payment to close on the deal. But secondly, and not to be overlooked, hard money lenders have done many, many deals. They have the experience that you and I speak of, right? They are going to comb through those numbers for that particular property that you are so enamored with, that you want to buy. They're going to comb through the financials of that deal. And if that deal doesn't smell, feel, look right, they are going to walk away. And how important, how valuable of an exercise is that for somebody who has such experience as a hard money lender to walk through that and say, you know what, Tony, I'm not going to give you the down payment because this one's not the right property. That alone should make you think and say, right?
And to that point, Tony, we did that on one of our properties. It was a 12 unit apartment building in Oregon, and Portland, Oregon, and wasn't a hard money lender, but it was a friend of ours who was a real estate professional. And he did a lot of properties up in Canada. So we needed a down payment, and we asked him if he could put up half of it. And we sent him the numbers, and he got really, really excited about the property. He's like, yes, I am in, let's do this. And I remember driving with Robert, and we're on the phone with him. He said, I'm in, let's do it. I pulled off the road, I stopped the car, and I said, he thinks this is a really good deal. And he's a smart guy, so it must be a good deal. So we need to do this ourselves. And so we scrambled like crazy to figure out how to get that whole down payment. We did it, but that's what actually makes it fun. It's like, how are we going to do this? And you get really creative. So we did find it. We did that deal 100% by ourselves, and it was a great property.
Nice. No, it's all.
But he was but he did teach us a lot, because he walked us through some of the numbers. He looked for things that we hadn't seen. It is a very valuable experience.
Yeah, this is all great stuff. Such great content you're helping to create here and push out to folks, push out to the viewers to help learn from our successes and our failures, as much as we're embarrassed by them sometimes, but it's important for us to talk about, and we have fun with it. I don't want to consume too much of your time because I know you're super busy, Kim. So the board game, people can find it at richdad.com. Guys, viewers, just go buy it.
Yeah. Yep. And if you play the game with your kids, so we have the cash flow for kids game that's like, maybe up to 10 years old. But there's a lot of kids that want to play the adult game, which is behind you and me. And you play it with your parents, or you play it with a mentor. They catch on really, really fast. Kids and money, amazing. They're so interested in it. And if you're thinking of having a significant other, you might want to play the game with them too, because you'll see real behaviors, true behaviors come out. It's pretty funny. It's pretty fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. I play the played the game with multiple people, and you are spot on. You see some different personalities come out you never knew existed. So it's a good party game. So and where can folks find the content you're creating, your podcasts and things like that? Where's the best place for folks to go?
Go to richdad.com. We've got the Rich Dad Radio Show. We've got lots of blogs, all sorts of resources that we're doing. We are going to launch the online cash flow game that we're doing, that we've been working on for 2.5 years now. So we're going to be launching that this year. Look for that. It's going to be very, very fun. As I said, you can play with people all over the world. You can play the same game with people in different languages. There'll be resources as well. Also, the cash flow clubs. There's cash flow clubs all over the world. We've got over 3,000 registered on our site. It's a great place to come together to learn with other people. And we're going to be supporting the clubs with resources and videos and information as well, because the cash flow clubs are getting the game and the information to places and people we will never, ever reach. Yeah. So they are near and dear to our hearts, because they're out there educating people and how to become financially free, how to become financially savvy. So we love our cash flow clubs.
Yeah.
Cash flow club yourself.
Yeah, we love the cash flow game. It's super easy to play. It's super fun. So we are definitely fans and promoters of the game. So I so appreciate you taking the time to come on to my small little channel here.
I love that you're educating people, Tony. That's so important, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Maybe in another 6 months or so, we'll have you back on. I know you keep a very busy schedule, but we can get back on and talk more about the real estate market, what's happening out there, and try to help people some more with things. Okay.
Interesting to see where it is in 6 months.
There you go. Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. We truly appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks.